He is one of the most admired writers of the first half of the 20th century. With his darkly absurd novels and stories, he captivated readers worldwide. His works are so filled with hopelessness that few could correctly guess the nature of their author. A calm, and despite his introverted nature, cheerful man, a staunch teetotaler, non-smoker, non-coffee drinker, vegetarian, reliable student, and later a diligent and successful insurance clerk who disliked extravagance. Such was Franz Kafka. Today, his name is such a literary phenomenon that crowds of tourists come to Prague just to see the places where he was born on July 3, 1883, where he spent his entire life, and where he wrote most of his works. Franz Kafka was born into the family of a Jewish haberdashery merchant, Hermann Kafka, and Julie Kafka, née Lovi. Franz was the eldest of 6 children. 2 of his younger brothers died in infancy, and his 3 sisters, Eli, Vali, and Otla, were killed as adults in gas chambers during World War II. Although Franz was Czech by heritage, his father decided to give his only son a German upbringing, believing it would ensure him a better future. Franz first attends the German boys' elementary school and later the German state gymnasium. Although he handles his studies with ease, signs of psychological instability begin to appear. He often suffers from feelings of weakness, restlessness, headaches, and hypersensitivity to symptoms of any illness, which he frequently imagines. His fragility, coupled with his delicate physical constitution, irritates his father, a robust and hearty man. He criticizes his son for his weaknesses, claiming he dwells on trivialities unbecoming of a man. This deeply wounds Franz, leading to estrangement from his father. At 18, Kafka enrolls at the German Faculty of Law in Prague, a period that marks a turning point in his life. It is then that he begins to write. Initially, it seems to serve as a form of therapy, helping him relieve his neurotic feelings. He writes his first short stories, reflections, and diaries, which he shares with his classmate, the budding writer Max Brod. Brod is struck by the texts, so unique, provocative, and gifted, that he urges Kafka to publish them and invites him to join the so-called Prague Circle, a group of predominantly Jewish Czech writers who, like Kafka, wrote in German. Max Brod gradually becomes not only Kafka's closest friend, but later also the man who will play a significant role in bringing Kafka's work to global fame. But that, of course, is getting ahead of the story. Now we are in the year of 1906. Kafka graduates in law and begins working the following year, first at the Generali Insurance Company and later at the Workers' Accident Insurance Institute. He is successful. Starting as a junior clerk, he quickly rises to the position of secretary, a significant career advancement. His colleagues and superiors hold him in high regard, especially praising his unusually calm and diligent nature. Kafka is said to reliably and punctually fulfill all his work obligations. Outwardly, everything seems ideal, and in his letters, Franz writes of feeling pride in his work and accomplishments. Yet, other passages reveal a different inner world. My job is unbearable to me because it conflicts with my sole calling, which is literature. Kafka publishes his first texts in 1908 in the Munich magazine Hyperion and in the almanac Arcadia by his friend Max Brod. He occasionally reads his stories aloud in public. According to Brod, Kafka always arrives at readings meticulously and thoughtfully dressed, taking great care in his appearance. He maintains his physical health through regular swimming, rowing, and cycling. In social settings, he avoids drawing attention to himself, dislikes extravagance and coarse humor, and comes across as gentle, smiling, and kind. It's no surprise, then, that during his readings, more than one woman is captivated by his hypnotic eyes and slightly devilish appearance. Kafka's relationships, however, are perhaps even more complicated than his connection to work and literature. He maintains them largely on a platonic level, preferring correspondence over direct interaction. In 1912, during a reading at Max Brod's, he meets Felis Bauer from Berlin. At first glance, he is far from enchanted. In his diary, he notes, "She seemed like a maid. I had no interest in who she was, but I tolerated her presence, a bony, empty face that openly displayed its emptiness. Yet, when he escorts her to her hotel and she whispers in his ear, 'Come to Berlin, leave everything in Prague and come,' a spark ignites. This spark lasts 5 years, resulting in 500 letters, 17 meetings, and 2 broken engagements, both called off by Kafka. It is speculated that he was deeply unsettled by physical intimacy. In his letters to Felice, he admitted being terrified by the conventionality of marriage and worried it would rob him of the time and space he needed for his writing. Kafka ended his relationship with Felice in 1917 after discovering he was infected with tuberculosis. He battled the illness for 7 long years, undergoing treatment in various sanatoriums and spending time in the countryside. In 1919, while staying in the central Bohemian village of Želízy, he met his second fiancée, Julie Vohřízek. Once again, the same pattern emerged: numerous letters and a broken engagement. Kafka also corresponded extensively with Milena Jesenská, a Czech writer and journalist living in Vienna. Though she was married at the time, it did not prevent an intense emotional connection. They met in person only twice before Kafka ended the relationship. However, Milena played a key role in translating some of Kafka's works into Czech. Kafka met his final companion, Dora Diamant, a year before his death. Unlike his previous relationships, they lived together, and Dora cared for him during his final days. Above all else, Kafka prioritized his literary work. Writing became a necessity of life for him, though it is no surprise that his relationship with it was as complicated as with everything else. Despite his immense talent, he was rarely satisfied with what he wrote. A perfectionist to the core, his writing process became a struggle, a furious effort to capture the inexpressible. Kafka rewrote, refined, and even burned his manuscripts. He often jumped from one text to another, waiting for the right moment, leaving many stories unfinished. Kafka wrote about feelings of loneliness and alienation, the futility of effort, and the absurdity of bureaucratic machinery. His protagonists are often humiliated victims of this machinery, denied even a simple explanation for their suffering. In 1924, Kafka's health deteriorated rapidly. He spent time in various sanatoriums and, following doctors' advice, even began eating meat. However, none of this helped. On June 3, 1924, in a sanatorium in Kierling, Lower Austria, Franz Kafka succumbed to tuberculosis at the age of just 40 years. Shortly before his death, Kafka summoned Max Brod and his companion Dora Diamant. He divided his literary work between them, expressing a final wish, that everything unpublished should never see the light of day and must be burned. It is worth noting that Kafka had only allowed a small portion of his work to be published during his lifetime. The majority of his oeuvre, including the novels The Trial, The Castle, and America, which would later become literary sensations, remained unpublished and in most cases unfinished. Dora honored her dying friend's wish, but Max Brod fortunately did not. After consulting with Kafka's mother, Julie, Brod decided not only to preserve Kafka's work, but to publish it. Thus, by the late 1920s, readers were introduced to Kafka's extraordinary, absurd, and distorted world. A world so unique that, despite its bleakness, it captivated millions and inspired countless authors of the emerging literary movement known as existentialism. The improbable, winding, and somber journey of Prague-born Franz Kafka to literary fame was complete.